Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. It's 49 degrees out, so I had to put the cap on. So today I'm going to try to describe something that I picked up from one of the weirdest locations. And it came from an interview. Got so many hoodies on. Gotta get my hair all situated. It came from an interview with Ian McKellen as a very young actor on the Dick Cavett show. It was a sort of a crash and burn interview. Not that anyone was disappointed with each other, but just watching Dick try to interview Ian, it was just weird. Sort of like the very bizarre Dick Cavett interview with Eddie Murphy, if you want to see a public train wreck. But I'm a huge fan of Dick's show and the way that he interviews people, pretty real from back in the day. But he was asking Ian a question about whether or not he could act as if he were a bad actor, and whether or not acting on stage is more difficult than acting in a movie. I think it was actually the other way around, the way the question was proposed. And Ian, being a very classically trained actor, ends up telling Dick Cavett this phrase of fashions of reality. And he said, if the audience member, he said basically an audience member could watch Ian perform a play, Shakespearean play. It'll all look perfect from 20 feet away. But if that same audience member were to come up on stage and watch Ian like really up close, then they would think it looks so strange on stage. Because there's a way, obviously, you turn to face the audience, you don't block yourself, that sort of thing. And it's sort of like what you'll see sometimes on television, but most of the time it does happen on stage. If two people want to talk to each other on a stage, they do not face each other, usually, the way that we face each other in real life. They rotate to about a, 30 degree, where they're facing the audience with their torso. And then the other actor's doing the same thing. So it's sort of a kind of a wide V shape. And they're talking and kind of looking at each other, but they know they have to give their facial expression to the audience. But what Ian tapped into was like straight up Marshall McLuhan kind of stuff. And I guess this is something that is taught, but I don't know if the actual phrase fashions of reality is something that is taught by a acting teacher. I mean, I took acting and I don't remember anyone mentioning this at all. But he says over time, things change. And he gives an example of a very famous actor in England, which I do not know. And he quoted a play, which I don't remember what it was. But he said that when he was young, he watched this mentor sort of actor being very animated and speaking in a particular way. And he says, if I did that today on stage, I would garner a laugh. But back in the day of his mentor, it was revered as a standing ovation type performance. And so I was thinking about this and thinking, okay, how do I get anyone to hear this and understand it? Regardless of your background with acting or writing or filmmaking or anything like that. And I think a really easy one is, when we look back at Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, or is it Fred Allen? We see in silent movies this over-exaggerated everything. The makeup is over-exaggerated so that it reads in the camera. Expressions are just 10x. But that's what makes those silent movies brilliant. Plus, they're always running a little fast unless they're corrected. As cameras and microphones improved, this fashion of reality started to emulate closer and closer to reality. Now, the one thing I don't have access to, and maybe some of you do, and it would be a great piece of homework for you to come back into the comments, depending on how old you are, you may know this. But I was raised on old 30s movies as a young kid. James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart. And we know that they had a cadence to the way that they spoke. One, they spoke extremely fast, and the audience had no problem understanding them. Pretty much proving we've been dumbed down. But given the participation trophy that makes us feel like we're smarter, but we're only academically smarter about technologies that didn't exist back in those days, but socially, I don't know. We definitely communicate better, and we're aware of various elements of psychology and that sort of thing. But today, if you really want to make a serious film, I think directors and writers are capable of actually tracking and creating a scene and filming it, and the actors are able to portray it that really does feel as close to reality as they want. So regardless if this is a phrase that's just out there to describe exactly what I'm saying to you, I want us all from this point forward to think about this little phrase, fashion of reality. Because we are all trying to maintain the highest level of integrity for our spheres of influence. Whether we consciously realize it or not, we actually have, this is going to be really interesting. If you think about yourself having a true sphere of influence, the only silly thing is you don't get to see the sphere underneath you unless you're on a trampoline. But other than that, our sphere of influence is very much like the human cell. The human cell has a membrane. The membrane is the brain of the cell. It decides what comes in and what goes out. Now, it can be tricked by a virus. It can be tricked by white blood cells carrying things in. But it's doing its best. It's got 3 layers of cells. The outside cell layer that says, are you friend or foe? Then a transmission electrical layer in between. And then another layer, which is to let things out for excretion and that sort of thing. And when it does do waste collection. Our sphere of influence is almost identical in a subconscious way. Once you get red pill, once you wake up, and it doesn't have anything to do with politics. But once you're just awake to trying to make sure that you're evaluating the folks in your life, all the way from family members to friends to random strangers, you want the highest level of integrity in terms of a filter for those that enter your life. If you ever wonder why it's really tough to meet a celebrity, it's because at first they keep this membrane open because they want to honor their fans. And then too many crazies come through the door. And so they start putting up the barriers. Keep everyone away from me. If they get a really bad one, everybody loses. I just finished a documentary on Adam Ant. I was a huge fan of Adam Ant. I didn't realize I had found him pretty much within the 12 months that he launched Kings of the Wild Frontier. Really got his look down. For me, he'd always been that way, but he actually hadn't. He'd only just recently figured out how to polish that off after about 3 years of prep. But this dude goes through his whole career, gets to a point where stress is just bugging him out. He's a little bit of a manic depressant. And so he comes to Los Angeles to get into the film business, and he gets quite a few roles. And while living here, this woman starts stalking him. And she comes over to his house and says, he's dating this other girl who's really, really sweet and has saved him, from mental breakdowns and stuff. So he's in this great situation. And he answers the door or something, and she says, I want you to get the whore out of the house. And I am the one that you're in love with. I'm the only one that you're in love with, and just living in her own world. Boy, I know a couple of those. But she stalked him for 3 years. Turns out that not only did she get put in jail for that stalking, because I think she entered his house and put a cake in his house with some writing on it or something. But California passed anti-stalking laws as a result of this woman chasing out a man. So he packs up his stuff, goes back to England. I think his relationship here fell apart. He gets married for a little while in England, and sure enough, he's in his flat in England, and the doorbell just won't stop ringing, and he opens the door, and it's some crazy chick, and she sticks her foot in the door. But she claims that he put a microchip in her brain because he's a neurosurgeon, right? And then he's been broadcasting messages, come get me. I so want to make love to you and all this other stuff. So not only did he get 2 stalkers, but he got 2 absolutely certifiable crazy stalkers. For a few years of my life, I was chasing away these people for a friend of mine who was very famous. They're out there. It's crazy. Where are you good ladies out there? Come on. You geniuses. We're nice and adjusted. But what's this have to do with the fashions of reality? And what the hell am I talking about in the first place? It goes like this. It goes back to Ian McKellen's statement. How many of you watch television today not because you want to, but because you're sitting at some restaurant, you're sitting at a bar, for whatever reason, you're stuck someplace, you're at a friend's house, and they just love them commercials, man. And you just cannot believe that anyone digests or accepts the shit coming out of this television as reality. It feels like your brain is melting away. You turn on the news and you can't believe that anyone thinks this is actually a regimented, journalistically sound artery to get information about how the world works. You're just sitting there going, this is like the crazy, and you turn on here's the only thing worse than television is a radio. Radios today, I mean, I don't know why they put them in cars anymore other than you want to hear something on your telephone. But in terms of FM and AM, if I ever, okay, as soon as I get done paying for my car, I'm going to try to pull the ROM on this thing and just erase FM and AM source code out of this thing. I never, ever, ever want to hear those 2 bandwidths in my life. In California, nothing's in English anyway. It's swill times swill times swill. So that is an example of fashions of reality. Go back and watch old television shows, and I mean any one of them. And they feel odd the more decades that you go back, but you don't have to go back to Leave It to Beaver. Just go back to the 90s. Watch an old episode of Martin, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now, some of these fashions are very entertaining, but all of you know that there's a difference between the entertainment channels where you're kind of going, yeah, this is a quirky, weird-ass show. It's all fiction. It's all for my entertainment. And then you'll click over to something that's trying to be informative. And I think that I'm going to struggle a little bit to describe this, and you might end up just getting me right away. I'm sure you guys do, especially you OG listeners. But you're going to probably think about like, oh God, yeah, there's that thing. And how do you describe that? How do you describe these faux realities that they're trying to project at us? And we call it like, in the category of journalism, or what I think David Icke beautifully calls repeaters, not reporters. It's all propaganda. It's all agenda-based. And so we have a nice name for the news, fake news, right? We say that. And that's a large part of what's on television. But what about everything else? These shows that, for years and years, we've been operating watching television as a suspension of disbelief. It's sort of what we like. And it's a little bit easier when it's on point, like a Star Trek. That's on point. There's a Federation. It's 2400 AD from 23 to 24. And so we feel very comfortable that the mind is not being brainwashed in any way, shape, or form. And this isn't going to be about brainwashing necessarily. But we know where we are. When we go into the kitchen to get a sandwich, to bring it back out, to finish up the Star Trek episode, we're still very centered. It's when the line between the world that you're living in and the stuff you're watching on TV is a very thin line. For me, that's where you can get in trouble. We have this built-in thing. You all know it. It's called monkey see, monkey do. And it really stems from the fact that when we were babies, what other choice did we have? It was a survival mechanism, and depending on how good your family is and your surroundings, it could have been the difference between you being a prodigy child and you just being a normal kid, or struggling with learning disabilities for a little while until you figured it out and got past it, you know? So your environment's very powerful. But anything that ever worked out for you where you were an emulator of your surroundings, don't forget that that's a talent that you have. In fact, don't forget that when you were born, you didn't go to college to figure out how to emulate so that you could come back in the daycare or sit in your crib with your parents looking down on you and you got it right. You just got it right because your genes do that. It's probably one of the most innate talents of the human species. Now, remember this. You never lost that talent. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to bet everything that I own that you only got better at it. Why? Because you went to school. You got a job. You were at a party once. You wanted to attract the opposite sex. Or, sorry, I don't mean to exclude anybody. You wanted to attract whatever you're attracted to, right? And so you emulate. You try to watch a movie. You pick up a line that a girl might listen to, you know? By the way, funny as it might be, Taxi, there's the tall guy who's trying to be the actor. He was in Grease Lightning. Or he was in Grease, excuse me. But he was in the Grease Lightning segment in Grease. This dude has a lot of great one-liners. It's a joke that he has great one-liners, and they really are pretty. I don't use one-liners myself, but if you need a few, that show's got some doozies. You could update him for the 21st century, but still, the theories are pretty good. And you may emulate in two different ways. I'm sure we all do this every day. One, you might emulate with the intent to build it into your character because it is something that you really admire. And usually it is a less is more formula. You know, I've told you guys a million times, you know, when I was 15 years old, pretty much, I made a decision to be a soft-spoken person. I made that decision. That doesn't mean I always speak softly. Oh no, if I'm at a karaoke bar and I'm trying to make everybody laugh, I'm going to get nuts with it. But, you know, and I'm on the mic, you know. But otherwise, just in normal conversation, that's just something I saw my dad's best friend do. He was a genius at it, and so I was into it. So that's one I liked. I took a lot of practice fighting my instincts, and I built it into my character as much as I possibly can. I attempt to refine it every day of my life. To whisper when you want to scream, as Prince said in Graffiti Bridge. But then there's the other one we do, which is to get by. If you've ever gotten a job at like a fantasy location, it doesn't matter how big or small that job is. It is just a job you always wanted. You could be a young kid, 14 years old, 15 years old, whenever you're allowed to work in your state. And man, you go in and you don't want to mess up. And so in order not to mess up, if you're smart, and it's a very natural thing, you just start looking around. You come in quiet. That's usually the best way to survive, is to come in quiet and ratchet up slowly over time. But watching how boisterous is this group of people that I'm working with? Are they very quiet people? Does anyone listen to music on a headset? You know, when problems arise in the business, whether it be a problem that everyone's dealing with, as in the economy or something, how do they bring it to a table and discuss it? And as you start to, you know, massage your personality and figure out where your skill sets are, you may go marching a lot heavier on the next opportunity. But I almost think it's good advice, no matter how old you are, to be cool for a while. Work as hard as you possibly can for those first 90 days, for sure, man. Make a mark. The reason why I mention that is I want to remind you how often we do this. Because we have pockets where there are multiple fashions of reality. You turn on the radio, there's a fashion of reality that you expect a radio to address you by. Real jingly sort of ads. Man, you listen to 2 minutes of content and 10 minutes of ads, and they'll try to say, try to guilt trip you into listening to all the ads. Well, we got to pay the bills, so we'll be back in 10 minutes. And a non-commercial hour free of music, and it's like, dude, just turn it off and DJ your own stuff, would you? Put these places out of business, man. That's why Sirius came around. Nobody want to listen to this crap. Just pay the bill. Listen to your favorite DJ talk, your favorite station. Just go without any commercials, unless they're selling you something directly inside the offering that you already love. But you turn on official news, like big network news, and that has a particular fashion of reality that you're to conform to their fashion of reality. And let me give you might be like, what the hell are you talking about? I'll give you an example. Broadcast speak. I used to criticize it on the show a lot, and I still hate it. The reason why I don't talk about it much is I don't see any of that news anymore. I haven't ingested any official news in so long, in terms of like a video of official news. I won't even watch a conspiracy video trying to red pill me if all they're going to do is play me clips of propaganda to try and rag on them. I don't want to hear it. I don't want you to tweet it. Your broadcast speak talks like this. They're talking to you. Remember Wolf Blitzer? The guy talks like no one talks on planet Earth. He's an industrial fan of propaganda. He could do a Maxell commercial where the dude's sitting in the leather chair listening to the stereo and his hair's blown back like mine. And it's just Wolf Blitzer, not a television. Why on earth would anyone on planet Earth listen to people who talk to you sort of in a belittling, you're so stupid, I'm talking in this particular way? It's insulting. Every single channel on social media, YouTube, Rumble, all these places BitChute, or these individuals have 150 to 200,000 followers. They're just talking to you like normal. And we're sick and tired of this artificial, human, bizarre, probably suggestive tones that everyone's talking in. It may be some hypnotic thing to talk to you like this, and let the healing begin. And just if you ever watch old 80s and probably even 90s news, you've got the puns, these mouth-breathing repeaters trying to litter something with tons of puns to sort of make it kind of funny. Go take a nap, would you? Now, the only place where some of this makes sense to me are shows that are designed for children. I understand why they do it. I have a policy myself that once a child hits about 9 years old, the baby talk needs to end. Mommy needs to stop talking like that to daddy and all this other stuff, unless it's something else you like to do. But I like to talk to kids like they have brains about 9 years old. There's some wild little button inside their brain. The kids that typically are more independent in life, higher IQs, had parents that treated them like adults after this certain age, at least by 10. Now, little kids, yeah, man, they're living in a cartoon. They watch cartoons on TV. All their toys are really anthropomorphized toys. Look at all the Disney animated movies from back in the day. Beautiful animations of talking candlesticks and that kind of stuff. So we want to let them kind of enjoy that world. They shouldn't have to, I don't believe the statement they shouldn't have to grow up too quickly, but I think that they shouldn't have magic extinguished because we should be protecting them in a little envelope, but about 9 or 10. Because they're about to go into their teens, and you know what the teens are all about? The teens are all about try everything you might end up doing for a living. And even if what you end up doing for a living is none of those things, at least you have that in your background. And you unequivocally know that is not what I want to do. I went to college and found philosophy, something I couldn't get when I was a teenager sort of thing. And as I struggle to put this into words, I'm going to probably put together some pretty bizarre analogies to sort of give us a vocabulary and a mechanism to talk about this. But how many of you have seen a book where there's 2 books I know that do this. One is sort of a Grey's Anatomy book where you've got clear overlays. At some point in the book, there's a cool section where the first overlay that goes down are the bones. Second overlay are the blue arteries, then the red arteries, then some organs come in, right? And you just keep overlaying until you build the human being, and you put the muscle tissue on and then the epidermis and some clothes, and you got a human being. My favorite one when I was a kid was the old King Tut book, where you could essentially dig him out of the tomb he was in, take off the face mask and all this other stuff, you get all the way down to his body, all mummified. I want you to think of your reality as one of these sort of layer imaging systems. Now, when you wake up in the morning, and let's say you have a moment to yourself, you're in the bathroom. Bathroom is one of the most self moments that you have in your life, no matter if you're married with 10 kids. You're in that bathroom. You got a moment to look in the mirror. Did you age today? Do you need to shave today? You need to pluck your eyebrows, ladies? Whatever it is. And you get in the shower. And most of the time, I think, even if you have a lover, you're in the shower solo. And so it's your little ritual. It's your thing. You can do whatever you want. You can wash your hair first, wash your body first, whatever you're doing. But the second you start putting your clothes on, you're starting to make choices about how you're going to portray yourself to the outside world. I know people that won't go outside unless they look fantastic. No matter what. Dudes, chicks, don't matter. But I also know people that just kind of cover the bases every day and go outside. I'm not naked enough to get a ticket, am I? Okay, I'm good, And to each their own. I'm not criticizing anybody. But I'm saying this to illustrate the fact that some people have more dedication to a persona, and other folks are living in their character. The difference being character is who you really are, and persona is what you portray to the outside world. Me wearing sunglasses at night in this show is a persona move. Me wearing everything else out here, that's my character. Now, the other interesting perspective on this is kind of what I alluded to earlier, which is the history of man's reality fashions, to flip the words around. I, like many of you, definitely fantasize at night as I'm going to bed about time traveling to various times and not traveling way far away from my comfort zone or my actual experience in this life, but going back to, say, like my little hometown in Kansas and say, I think they finally chose the name in like somewhere in 1850, 1860, somewhere in there. But as soon as they locked down the name of the city, town, it's a township, man. How amazing would it be to do the old Christopher Reeve somewhere in time thing where I kind of put some garb on that's looks like their time frame, get rid of all the coins in my pockets from 1976 or whatever it was, and then go back and just be a fly on the wall. Go into the businesses. Talk to the people who own these places. There was no cars back in the day, so then get to see a horse and carriage go by. Find out that people don't travel that much because you just don't. You can't. It's not that easy. There's a train coming through town. I might take a train to Humboldt or Iola, eat lunch and eat dinner and come on back on the late night train. Something my parents used to do, my grandparents. And I assure you that probably at least every 20 to 30 years, if you were to jump in those increments up, say you start in 1850, you're going to see a whole other fashion of reality. How people talk, what they talk about. How many times have you heard these sort of historical recaps for various reasons? Could be a war historic documentary, could just be someone talking about the 40s or whatever. And you'll hear people say, we didn't talk about those things back then. Recently, here in the last 6 months, one thing that's really surfaced has been religion and politics were two things that you weren't to talk about. And I think it was a documentary I just saw. I mean, it's probably some little short video, but someone was talking about it in Great Britain. They were saying, look, man, you were considered a complete asshole if you brought those two subjects up in any way, shape, or form, because you were never to ask another person who they voted for. And as far as religion goes, well, they knew it just led to bad conversation. That is a delineation between now and then, because I'm pretty sure Britain you can't walk around anywhere unless they figured out whether you're a Brexit person or a Boris person or a Queen person or whatever, because everyone's trying to extort out of you your choices to then come back and punish you. I think what appeals to me most about this entire theory, because it was just said in the realm of acting, is it is acting. And here we are in an era where we are now waking up faster than we can almost consciously mature to the data that we're getting, right? We're getting all kinds of data that we really don't know how to process. I mean, how many people have heard all these rumors about, and even the proof and evidence of human trafficking and child trafficking and Epstein's Island? Yes, you mechanically know in your mind what they are talking about, but no one wants to cross that line, and you shouldn't have to. Man or woman, hard soldier, or some pussy beta male or whatever, you shouldn't have to ever see in your mind what these people did to be able to convict them in a court of law. It just goes right up to the edge of hell, and you stop there and you go, okay, no children should even see this line, let alone be living on the other side, because some, Adam Schiff wants to, or Joe Biden wants to do something to him. But now, what have we seen in the last year? We've seen TED Talks trying to make this okay. We have shows on Netflix that are trying to make it okay. They're not the first guilty people on the planet to try to make this okay. It's just the most recent attempts. It's one thing to have sympathy for someone struggling, I guess, with this attraction/addiction. But it's a whole other thing when you're informed that they have been engaging in such a thing, even pictorially. We, as citizens of the world who want to make this a better place, we have to understand, I think, these fashions of reality to either reject them or accept them in our sphere of our influence. Because the sphere of influence, it goes both ways, man. Your sphere of influence is someone steps in your sphere, and this is how it's classically defined. You're influencing everyone in that sphere, depending on your personality type. However, if you let a bad apple through that door, they're going to start influencing you. One of the common scams that's going on Instagram, and if you're a dude, I can't see how you haven't had this happen to you, and it doesn't even matter if you don't like chicks. You get these, I'm just going to call them whores. They come up to your page, they invite you into some chat, and they try to have, I just tried to crack one the other day. I cracked this, God knows where they're from. They could be in any country in the world. It could be in America. But they build a profile out of someone else's pictures. They don't know you from a hill of beans. And they come in. Now, they do it a couple different ways. Sometimes they approach you, and it's all robot on the other side. It's just software. But they'll approach you. Hi, And they're trying to find a desperate guy to jump into this reality. Oh man, I got me a hot chick. Last one I had, I was at the lounge watching it one night, and my buddies around me, and we just started playing this chick on the phone. I mean, who even knows if it's a woman? And it was a bunch of pictures, and I didn't recognize the person at all. I mean, it wasn't famous, and it wasn't anyone I knew. Hi, So immediately I grabbed the pictures down, look it up. This person has used a famous porn star's pictures, an older, middle-aged woman, but she was definitely smoking. It wasn't her, of course. And I'll give you the little trick I always do with these folks. Just to see what they do. They're fake the second they touch you. Sometimes they do. The other one is just throw it out because this is a real easy one. They bring in 3 people and try to do that all together. Would you like to see me get undressed? And then they give you some link. Or they try to get you into some app. They're trying to steal your credit cards. They're trying to get you to send them money, gift certificates and gift cards and all this other crap. But what I do is I always say, oh, that's pretty neat little, pictures you got there. You look like you're really pretty. Oh, yeah, I'm totally pretty. So good. And then I'll say, why don't you do me a favor? Since you're chatting with me through your telephone, because I'll bait him into answering that question. Are you talking to me through your phone? Oh, yeah. Okay. Everyone's got a telephone with a camera. I'll say, take a picture of yourself holding up 3 fingers. Now, this last one was pretty clever. About 5 minutes, they kind of disappear because they're having 10,000 conversations with other people. It could all be robots, as far as I know. But this one actually, I think, had a person on the side. Pretty quickly, about 5 minutes later, I get a picture with 2 fingers up. But now everybody does the peace sign. This person found that same. I found the site they were dragging all the photos off, and I'm looking right at the peace sign one. So sure, I get the peace sign one back. It's only 2 fingers, not 3. And so then I said, that's just 2. That's not 3. Why are you asking so many dumb questions? That's the response I get every single time they tell these whores to say this stuff. Why you ask so many dumb questions? So funny, man. What these people, I think, are trying to do is to create this little annex of reality. Right? Let's say I was married with kids and, I'm a preacher or something. And that's my world. I got my home world with my home rules for the family, and I got the ministry. It's got its own rules. God decides those. Out in public, I got to behave a certain way. I got a third one. I talk to old people different than I talk to little kids. And here's this person offering a person on the other side this little quarantined naughty area. I would love to know the metrics on the success of these people playing people. It's all fake. All fake. And what's weird is you'll report them sometimes to Instagram or to whatever. Facebook has a ton of them, man. Facebook's like 50% fake at least. And the community monitors will be like, they're not violating any of our things. It's like, hey, well, look at the chat I just had with this person. They're faking who they are. This, for me, is a bit like the glasses in the movie They Live. You put them on, and you can start seeing these layers of fashion within reality. And I think that most of them make us want to puke. The amount of people in the last 5 years, especially the last 2 years, especially females. I'm so impressed with the females in this world right now. And I recently heard, I think it was Simon Park say that the females are really leading the charge in a way that hasn't been led before in the red pill community. Because guys, again, like I've said several times, we're expected to follow the conspiracies because we're little explorers. Whereas women are like, don't bother me unless it's important or it's real. Now, women are susceptible to different things, and men are susceptible to different things, like I just gave you an example. But the amount of females lately that have told me, how does anyone watch TV? Just TV. Anything. The news, Friends, something that's on. I don't mean to insult Friends if you love Friends. But I mean, look at Friends. It's It's kind of fun and kitschy, but we know it's entertainment. There's characters in there that are so extreme in one direction that you know it's not reality. Just like Cheers, just like Taxi. It's when it's trying to live in the mezzanine between, like sitting on the fence between crazy and reality, that you can start almost dragging your own reality into their reality and doing weird stuff in your own circles of influence that you, if you were paying attention to the small evolution from normality to weirddom, you wouldn't do it. You go, why am I doing that? That's weird. I started to accept a faux reality within my own life simply because I get good at what I do, and I've been doing this show for way too long. Now, this show is helping me explain something that I've been thinking about for quite a while. And I don't mean to offend anyone who appreciates this. I just gave a big shout out to Andre the Giant not too far back. But let's take professional wrestling in fine quotes. Now, most adults know that this stuff is not real. One guy got his ears clapped, and he sued the living crap out of the guy because he had hearing damage for the rest of his life, because he went up to somebody, I can't remember which wrestler it was, but he goes, this is all fake, right? And he just went pop and popped his ears with two hands at the same time. And these are gigantic human beings, right? But as a kid, I used to watch the old school, almost Spanish wrestler stuff like Jack Black did. It would air in Kansas City, I think on a Sunday. And, you're bored in the morning, you're just watching this stuff, and these old men throwing each other around. But as I grew up, I thought wrestling, there's a danger in that thing. Way beyond kids trying to jackass themselves to death. There's so many kids that have broken their backs and been paralyzed because they see things on TV and they do them in their hillbilly houses. One of the most famous ones, the kid needed to stay in school. He needed to take some physics. He put a lawn chair, one of those plastic injection molded lawn chairs, down on the ground, and he jumped off the roof and put his ass right in the seat. And of course that chair broke instantaneously, and his spine hit the ground. And they put it in these compilation videos like it's so funny, but I'm pretty sure that if that kid can feel his feet, I would be surprised. But I know that kid was in the hospital for a very long time. Another one, same situation. I can't remember how high the kid jumped from, but one of the legs went inside of his body, man. So there's that danger too. But the biggest danger is a very simple theme. Adults and children lying to themselves that this stuff is real for decades. You're looking at something that's fake and telling yourself it's real. Now, some families know it's fake and they have a good time and they're well adjusted when they go home. And you just enjoy the drama and the story, and it's like a sitcom. It is, right? It's it's a very physical sitcom. And for those folks, they're probably all right. But I come from the Midwest, where I know there are dozens of families that believe all of this is real. And they they hate somebody or they love somebody based on a fictional thing. What do I keep telling you about? The more you do something, you're really good at it. Remember the Russian KGB guy that said by 1985, they could show an American the truth and they would deny it. There's a fashion of reality for you. I hate to even say what I'm about to say. I think I even said it once on my old episodes I pulled. But this thing that happened in 2020, that's still going on. Probably, if there's a silver lining to this situation, which I would never use this methodology to do this again. But one of the silver linings is humanity detoxing out of a lot of crap, because it can't be done right now. And I think that these professional wrestling matches kind of taking a year off, letting people pick up a book and read something, or find some other form of entertainment, maybe even listen to their own thoughts in their mind. It's probably been good for humanity, to be honest. Life used to be much more simple. And it's simply because entertainment barely existed. Look back in history books, man. People lived really hard lives. It was just tough to survive. And entertainment might have been a Greek theater. It might have been someone in the neighborhood who can sing a song, or you might dance a couple times a year because some celebrations are going on. But for the most part, people just live lives. I mean, have any of you heard the stories about how the Romans had the Christians, eaten alive in these Colosseums? And you hear the story that they came to watch this. There's a fashion of reality for you. They came to watch it, and you hear that story as a little kid first. Almost every single time you hear that. And, that subconsciously, that the agenda is, this isn't a story about anyone in the audience. This is a story about Christians being persecuted by the Caesars of the time. So push that aside, because that's something you've heard and you understand. Now crawl behind, just time travel back there in your brain and sit next to people in the Colosseum and just be like, what are we doing here? Oh, they're going to kill these guys and they're going to get ripped apart by a lion, and we're going to watch it, and we're going to yell and scream. We're going to eat our popcorn while this is going on. Nothing weird about seeing a body disemboweled, but nothing weird about hearing screams of human beings. I think that's a great example of how versatile the human consciousness can be. We now live in an absolute oxymoron platform of humanity. One group can burn down a city, and they're heroes. They have no demands, they have no IQs, they're littered with foreign agitators, they give all their money to a political party that doesn't give a shit about them. And your law-abiding citizens, if they even stand next to a harsh word, oh man, they're to be jailed and have their lives destroyed. And somehow society isn't cleaning up that other group. And unfortunately, the cops are participating in this. The military's allowing this. The fashions are always changing. But instead of being an organic evolution of fashion, of reality, it is now an orchestrated, designed transition that is being projected at you through every medium you ingest. From YouTube videos to television to radio, every single form of media, a newspaper. And then it infects all of the mouth breathers of the world, all the low vibration, low IQ people. And you have to listen to it at a restaurant, right? I had some barbecue today, and it's a great meal. And there's two old couples, probably about the age of my parents. And they have their masks on. It's good. I guess they should. They're sort of in that risk thing, I guess, I mean, I don't know if they did that when the flu was going around, but whatever. And they're just organizing their medical regimens. They've accepted it in terms of getting something in their arm. They surrendered their medical prowess to other people who they don't know. I mean, most neighborhoods have some geniuses on the block, especially in a small town where you know everyone. Big city, and you don't know someone two doors down. Let's say you're in a little tiny town, and you know everybody. You know that dude's the professor at the college that teaches virology, that one's a doctor at the hospital, and so-and-so's a scientist here and there. And these three people come together, and they think that they've created a serum that once put in your body will make your IQ higher. And they come and knock on your door and say, we need to put this in your arm. Why? Because you're going to love it. It's going to make your brain even more powerful than it is. Are you going to let them do it? They said, oh no, we did 10 years of clinical studies. We've been doing it on each other. No, you're not going to do it. But today, you don't even have that intimate connection with the people that created this thing or the people that want to put it in your body. You can't even find out what's in the thing. Fashion of reality. Give up. That's one of the fashions. Surrender. Trust. I mean, do you guys know of a corporation that is just making the world a better place? That's all they do. They just make the world a better. I'm not talking about getting your back massager in the mail overnight, ladies. I'm talking about replacing the rainforests that are gone, fixing the bottom of the ocean where China's destroying it with their gigantic nets, just destroying the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. No fucks given, man. None. I don't know of any. Greenpeace was created but immediately co-opted. It's just like that guy who wrote the book about vegetarianism back in the 70s, and then they made a movie about his book, and it was bought out by the meat company. The book was licensed and optioned by a meat company through a proxy corporation, and the whole movie's about human trafficking and not about whether meat's good for you or bad for you. One of the biggest problems that Americans are suffering from, and this has been lamented by some of the most astute, brilliant Arab men who do not believe in all the crazy stuff like Sharia law or anything. Totally brilliant, 200 IQ guys. And there's a really famous one that lives in England, and one of you is going to know who this guy is, but he has been writing for years that Americans are absolutely the most gullible people on planet Earth. And that we're going to lose America to his ancestors. He's not in support of it, but you're going to lose it because he's like, we already took over England. Don't worry about that. This is now a Middle Eastern state. Don't worry about it. This is sort of how he writes. But he says, you guys are way too trusting. You pride yourself on your ability to trust a stranger. And he goes, where I come from, nobody trusts you at all until you prove that you're trustworthy. We got to dig in your life and find out what you've done to see what you stand for. And the dude is right. I mean, he puts it in words that are gorgeous, and it's terrifying to read, honestly, because once you read it, you're like, oh my God, Canada's this way, America's this way, Australia already got totally taken over. I don't know about New Zealand. Europe's been taken over. Because when you got it good, you're really trusting, aren't you? But it'll be your downfall. It's our fashion to trust. It's what we do. It is what we pride ourselves on. But maybe we should go back to a more, vetting process. The membrane, just like the human membrane of the cell. And by the way, if you ever want to know everything about the human cell and have your mind blown with epigenetic research, go get Bruce Lipton's book, Wisdom of Your Cells. Used to be on YouTube, but he reads the book to you and he's amazing. It's about $70, but man, it'll change your life if you dig that kind of thing. But imagine tomorrow you wake up and you're going to engage this theory. I assure you it's a reality. I assure you it's a reality. But from that point forward, what you ingest, you evaluate it instead of trust it. I think most of us are doing this today, especially in this sort of post-election United States. If you're interested in your country becoming freer, getting your rights back, and you want to make sure America doesn't lose its ability to help if you happen to lose yours, we've got a bunch of people out there supposedly helping us understand what's going to be coming. I watched a bunch of stuff today, but we're all starting to smell, BS all over the place, even in the supposedly trusted areas. And some people have good days and some people have bad days trying to discuss what's going on because they don't have any more information. But they don't want to make you think they don't have that information. This guy Simon Parks is one of them. I don't want to really make this a very current affair episode, but he is in there He has told us for weeks and weeks and weeks that it's just right around the corner. It's next Thursday. It's Wednesday. It's today. It's whatever. And nothing's happening. Then they try to say, well, a bunch of stuff's happening, but you just don't know. I hope they're all right. I hope they are. I mean, correct in their information they've been getting, but I just, Charlie Ward's one of them. 107's one of them. We want to believe these people, but, who knows? But what if we take this theory and you never turn your radio on again, unless you're going to blast it through your phone into your car, off your favorite podcast, your favorite music player, whatever. As far as news goes, you just don't look at it. If you're anywhere stuck watching stuff, and one of the big things, of course, is the hate-filled activity of sports. Everybody hates everybody, except unless they like your arbitrary team, which has nothing to do with your state or your city. As I said back in my old competitive episode, there's a competition episode way back in season 1. The LA Dodgers aren't made at Los Angeles exclusive people, right? When Brady goes over to the Buccaneers, right? Wins the Super Bowl. Okay, so why are you so loyal to your team? It's just the logo, man. That's all it is. If you could draft someone from around the world to be on your team who's the best team, so what? Your logo wins? Who fucking cares, man? Don't you have something a little bit bigger in life to deal with? How is that even entertaining? That everyone loses but one person. Oh, that sounds like a really good archetype for mankind. It's like going to college, right? And you're in the class of 2020. And if this was a competitive sport, only one of you would graduate and the rest of you die in a ditch. Huh? What? Where is that good for your soul? To be that stressed out and to lose your real life for all this fake crap. It's because that is a fashion of reality all by itself. I mean, probably one of the greatest benefits to mankind is all this kneeling crap that was going on and trying to say we're not going to play it with Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban? Is that the guy? Said he was going to not play the national anthem on his NBA team. And the NBA said, well, then you have to sell your team because your team's never going to play. Because he has to sign a contract with the NBA, and the NBA controls what they do. Now, of course, they've also endorsed all this political protesting during their games. This is an organization, just like the NFL and all these other things, where you can't be on the field with a shirt that's untucked or you'll get like a $50,000 fine or something. You can't celebrate too much after you make a touchdown because that's gloating and, participation trophy time. Wow. Is competitiveness important? Sure it is. Is there usually one winner? Yeah, there is. But to ferment the rest of the world in some war against each other over what amounts to some ink on a piece of paper, for me, it's just ridiculous. That's just my thing. I've never been a big fan of sports. When I was a nerd, deciding to spend my time either doing something super creative, music or art or something like that, but I was also a hardcore programmer. Being in a computer lab, we were all we weren't really competing. We were all just trying to create games and software as kids in our teens. And I used to create games like crazy. And it was like, okay, what'd you make? And some dude made a really cool database. And I made a drag race game. I made a horse race game. I made a Zork kind of game, except it was a haunted house. And they liked mine and I liked theirs. And one dude created a chess game. Beautiful chess game. You could print the board out. You could save your board. It was amazing. He went off and worked for Google. He was the dude who ported Google Earth to the Mac. Okay. There you go. I didn't have to lose for him to win. And he didn't have to lose for me to win. We both won. We just won in different ways. That's all. That's a fashion I dig. There's I'm just going to bounce around a few more examples, then we'll get a little deeper in the track here. Buddy of mine likes to watch a bunch of car videos online. And there's this one guy, I think he's British, and he has this channel, and he takes his car out. He gets a car, whether it's his or something he's borrowed, and then he has someone out the window with another car, and the video will be about these two cars racing to some finish line. They do brake tests, they do rolling start races, and all this other stuff. But the guy will absolutely have a shit fit if he doesn't win. And today I saw one where he lost every single thing he was trying to do. And he's all pouty. He's a grown man in his 40s or 50s, pouting in this car because he couldn't win. I was just like, wow, this is where we are, right? Everything's got to be a competition. And he's racing like luxury cars against each other that shouldn't be raced because it ain't about that. But this kid's got a 12-year-old brain. He'll buy a Bentley and worry about whether or not it outraces some Mercedes or something. It's like, dude, you're missing the point. The reason why you sleep alone is because, you're chick repellent. I think the key word that we want to add to the evaluation equation of various fashion realities is integrity. I think there's a tremendous amount of integrity in the world, and I think it's the overwhelming majority of the world. Even our friends that have a hard time getting red-pilled, part of their resistance barrier is that they are good people and can't conceive of anything evil. And so we kind of have to, we want to yell at them sometimes. We're like, damn it, wake the hell up. You're a smart person. What's your problem? But we don't know if their daddy touched them when they were little or whatever, but they're going towards this evil. And the force field is just terrifying. I mean, for them, it's the biggest monster in the closet coming out to eat them in little pieces, I mean, it freaks them out. So they retreat, go back to their little world. And it wouldn't matter as much if we weren't having the world destroyed by evil right now. We need everyone awake as much as possible. It's their duty to wake up. I don't expect, this is not a sexist statement, but this goes back to the old chivalry thing that I mentioned in my Chivalry is Dead episode, which is that I think that we can get it back, but men typically view themselves as protectors of their family. And whether or not you're married or not, it's your family. And so part of me just automatically says, women don't have to deal with this. But like I said earlier in the episode, women are dealing with this. Women are stepping up to the plate, more so than men, almost per capita in numbers. But we expect the men to go in and see what can't be unseen. It might be scarring, might be even instant PTSD. Who knows? The one thing about Adam Ant that stuck with me, this has to do with the ability to deal with bad information. He made it, it was amazing. It was a 6-year-old documentary. He's actually healed up quite a bit since then, and he's been on tour for years now. But he went back to the hospital, which he's been to a couple times. And he's sitting there and he's trying to describe to you what it's like to be a clinically depressed person. Because if you haven't dealt with a clinically depressed person, his guitar player, who somebody told me he died, and he didn't die. He's 61. He's doing just fine. But he said, and I've dated one person like this in my life, and I even mentioned this moment in an episode a long time ago. You don't go and ask a person who's clinically depressed what's making them depressed. There is no reason. It's PTSD reason. Something deep down inside conjures up, and this is what Adam said. So the guitar player said, you don't ask Adam what's wrong with him because he'll say, I don't know. But Adam said, look, when you go into this depression phase after a manic phase, he goes, your mind is broken. It plays tricks on you. And it just shows you all the nightmarish thoughts that you've ever had in your life. And it won't stop. And so you want to make the noise stop. And so that's when you get irrational and suicidal and that sort of stuff. In a way, fashion reality is a 4D chess game. You're looking out at the world and you're thinking, man, it's never been complicated before. Do I really want to adopt a paradigm of filtering that makes it complicated? Well, I would liken it to this. For any of you who know how to drive a car, you know that when you first started driving your car, it was a little terrifying, wasn't it? Depending on if you live, even if you live in a little town, it's still terrifying because it's your relative town. It's your relative moving objects. And because a car can kill anybody, it doesn't matter if you're in a big town or big city. But you know, when you got in there and you started feeling comfortable, you're still checking all your mirrors. You're thinking about where your hands are on the steering wheel because someone told you and you want to follow the rules so you drive better. But eventually it becomes ubiquitous to your character. You lived a little while figuring stuff out. If any of you have tried to detox your body, you know that it was like meticulous and annoying as hell. I can't use underarm deodorant if it's got aluminum in it. Oh, shit. What am I going to do? I sweat, So you go through 4 or 5 organic brands until you find something good. And then it becomes ubiquitous. I think this regimen of reevaluating how many fashions you're ingesting will be a very short time. And then you'll be okay. And you will have made the decisions for yourself. Now, let me give you a word of advice because I'm seeing a scenario in my head that I would love for you guys to avoid. Let's say you have a partner, and maybe they're not awake completely, but maybe they made that comment about, man, isn't TV horrible? If you're going to actually take this and use it, and if you find an area of reality that you think is unhealthy for you, your family, before you turn it off or request it to be turned off or request not to be in the room when it's happening, do a few things. Explain this theory first and then give it like a week because then they get to kind of think it out themselves. You may have to compromise with a few things. For instance, I think the show Bachelor, of which a girl from my hometown won the first one, I think it's really bad for the brain. I think it's shit entertainment. I think it's everything, and there's a bunch of shows out there like this, right? But what if your spouse is really into that? Your girlfriend. And it's mid-season. You got to probably let her finish it, right? I'm just giving that example because you could be the woman and you're trying to get your dude off of wrestling or sports that's just unhealthy. We always hear that domestic violence goes up during Super Bowls or during big World Series events because the woman is seeing it for what it is. And if she tries to interfere in any way, shape, or form, some guys are just children and they lose their cool. I can't shake this desire to see, like I mentioned earlier, what the past was like. And I don't know, very strategically, probably like 1875 to 1880, somewhere in there. There's cameras in the world, but we don't have movie theaters yet. I don't believe we had radio yet, right? And so we lived in our own skin. We listened to our own brains. Any type of entertainment where humans actually getting together and playing a fiddle and dancing and whatever you do, play some bagpipes, whatever it is. We knew each other a lot better. We knew ourselves a lot better. And the more that these artificial realities are given to us through medium enhancements, we lost ourselves, even if it was entertaining. There are, actually in the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, there's a scene where Klaatu gets to this house where he ends up taking up he's a boarding guy. He's got a room there. And there was a scene, I believe, downstairs where everyone's listening to the radio. I don't think it was the TV. But they all just sat there and listened to the radio like zombies. And of course, it's entertaining. Someone's got a comedy show, they're playing some music, they got a sort of a soap opera. And so it's entertaining. But think about the visual of seeing them sitting in the chair, doing nothing, but being entertained. Now, maybe if it made them think, might be interesting. Really think, not memory recall like Jeopardy. I really struggle. I'm very saddened by the death of Alex Trebek. But there was definitely this thing, and I wish I had had a chance to meet the man. I got to his set once, but he wasn't there. It's really weird in real life, by the way it's all arranged on stage. It's nothing like the way you think it's arranged. It's very interesting. I took some pictures, but they had it all draped in cloth. But he had a coiffy thing of I'm a genius, and I guess he spoke 7 languages or something. But the whole show was all about memory recall, not thinking. I don't even know how the hell you'd make a show out of thinking. It's called IQ test, and it takes 8 hours to finish an episode. Probably wouldn't work. Even brilliant shows like Cosmo, like back in the day, and I know it's all pop science, trust me. Actually, one of the best shows that I ever watched was called Connections. I think it was out of the UK, and it was this kind of unsung hero of science that would start off with, I think one of the episodes I remember was that the guy sunk a ball on a pool table, and he said that the cue ball is made out of a material that derived from, I think, gunpowder or something. I think I got that right. But he would show you this gigantic, like 3,000-year connection story with a particular invention that we have today and how bizarre these previous inventions were that led to the thing that you're holding in your hand. And on this note, the finale of this episode is to reverse. In addition to the way that we're talking about filtering out bad realities, bad fashions of reality. Someone talking to you like this, right? That kind of stuff. Let's filter stuff out, but let's also figure out what we want to pull in. And like many of you have created your own YouTube channels and that kind of stuff, you are projecting a reality fashion that you think is healthy for humanity. You're sharing something, sharing your thoughts, you're sharing your research. Maybe you're an aggregator and you present things. This show does it all, right? But we have Jed over in Scotland. He's doing all kinds of wild, amazing videos. He goes all over the history of castles in his area. He goes to museums and he parses his own history. Utterly fascinating. I can't remember if it's my buddy Adam Richman, who's a comedian here in LA. So I heard a comedian recently, I think it was him. He was talking about the participation trophy. And he was just talking about, and many comedians have talked about this, but he says, if I have any kids, I want them to be able to lose. I want them to be able to feel that, and so that they can, dedicate themselves and get better at something. It's the best part of competition. Because at least in little kid teams, there's all kinds of wins in the middle of maybe not getting the complete success. And you don't have a national press fermenting hate on Little League. It's just, I enjoy playing baseball, softball, whatever it is. There are so many new, how do I say this, methods of living that are trying to be imposed on us, and not just medical ones as a result of this recent scamdemic thing, where all the other forms of death have just vanished off the face of the planet. I read a really funny meme today. Someone said, whatever happened to everyone dying of vaping? But there are ones that are more subtle. One of the biggest ones that we're all aware of is perversion is trying to be cleansed into society, so the perverts won't have anyone against them. States are trying to reduce sentences for people that do these things. Gavin Newsom who's going to get recalled here real shortly. Who, by the way, wants to verify the signatures on his recall. Ha! No ID to vote for your president, but boy, he wants an ID to get kicked out. He's done. Because people are tired of this. People are tired of this stuff. They're choosing to kick out that fashion of reality. It's happening all over the world. I really think humanity is winning. And the only reason why we may incur a moment of doubt as to our winning is that this machine that is the media, that we still haven't defunded by never turning them on again. You realize if you never went to some of these websites again, these businesses that give us fake information will go out of business. We can deplatform every single social media out there. We can. We just don't have the balls to do it, I guess. We're so addicted to it. I mean, I'm guilty. The second I do a tweet, I just did a tweet that says, retweet if you hate retweeting. 2 people retweeted that. So what we're kind of doing, is I drop off the videos on probably 5 to 6 different social media sites. And I try to pay attention if somebody says something. And just for the newcomers, just so you know, you'll comment a lot on the YouTube channel. And it takes me a while to get back to every single one of you. I've been doing a little more fluent. But if you're like, man, I put a really good comment and he hasn't said anything, just give it some time. I'll get to it. If I push the like button on your comment, that means at least I've read it. I mean, really read it. But sometimes I will put a mental note. I need to go back and offer a reply to that person because it was great. And I'm telling you, I've said this a few times. I guess I'm going into the bumper here, but some of the comments from some of you folks are just as good as the episode, if not better. And some of your corrections on information are fantastic, or just add information. So for those of you who really want to have a good time, you're usually encouraged to put comments in on videos because it helps the metric on the video, and that's still true. But if you really want to engage in a community, we have a good one. We have a really, really good one. So I appreciate every single one of you for stopping by and sharing your DNA in the comments, I think in the next 12 months, we're going to have some serious contenders, and these folks will be wiped off the face of the planet. Just going to some of the little tiny ones like Gab and 107daily.com and Minds.com, and you can say anything you want on those platforms, and there's not going to be a fact checker telling you that it's bogus, right? Parler needs to stay dead. Parler is owned by a liberal. As much as Dan Bongino's in there, or Dan Bongino, excuse me, he's the only conservative on the whole thing, and he was suckered into investing to give it credibility. But they were censoring all kinds of stuff towards the end there that should never be censored. True facts about your rights, they were censoring. So let them die. Erase the app off your phone. If they rebirth, don't go. If they change their name, just remember you're going back into the den funding another censorship platform. Trust me. There's too many good alternatives out there to be going back to that swill. Let those people lose all their money. But anyway, hopefully this was as interesting to you as it was to me when I first heard this. Props to Ian McKellen for sharing that on the Dick Cavett Show some 30 years ago. No, shoot, probably 40 years ago. Dude's been around for a while. He's born in 1939. So hopefully we got him in this world for a lot longer. But if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, that's where you want to go and bookmark that page in your browser somewhere, just in case we wake up one day and we've sunk further into their stuff. There's always going to be alternatives. BitChute.com is the 100% video alternative. And so go there and make sure and create an account. Creating an account's more important than subscribing to the show. But if you do, go ahead and subscribe while you're in there. We haven't had, but probably we're up to about 530 members now, and it doesn't go down. I mean, nobody gets kicked off. I'm still getting reports. If you leave this show here's a little reverse engineering sales pitch. If you leave Deep Thoughts and don't habitually watch the videos when they come out, they will unsubscribe you without you asking for it. And I've just been looking and mulling over the metrics and the statistical probability of the metrics that I'm seeing. And it is just, I'm willing to bet that YouTube is probably ignoring about 90% of the views that we have, because I'm getting comments on videos that aren't going up in view counts, but you can't even bring up the video without dinging it up one, right? So, and also remember, we have hundreds and hundreds of episodes. If you dig any one episode, chances are you're going to dig another 100. So get back there and take a look. You can use the website search field to find exactly subjects that you think you maybe I haven't covered, but I have. Type in Titanic, and you'll be like, oh my God, he did it, But there's also a category list there that helps you filter to what you're most interested in. So if you like space stuff, it's in there. Alien stuff, it's in there. Dreams, screenwriting, all that stuff is all in there, ready to go. So there's several video options, definitely audio options, social media options. There's an all-new remastered Season 1. Season 1's a little rough. I apologize. Again, we're going to reprise all the best episodes. We have done several this year already. There's a store. I'll be adding a few more concepts in there for you guys. And for those of you who contribute to the show through either PayPal or Patreon, thank you so much. You're in the credits forever. You get the episodes typically a day before everyone else gets them, so you get in there first, get your comments in there. Hopefully that's valuable to you guys. But anyhow, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you on the next Deep Thoughts. Over now. That she should be coming to him and getting tracked. And coming to him to get the phone.